Good morning, everybody. Meteorologist Mike Linden here, back at you live on, it is Wednesday, the morning of October 28th. It is just after 9 o'clock here in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. I am coming at you live from the MyRadar studio here in Orlando, Florida. Behind the scenes, we've got Damien. Say what's up if you are watching in the chat. And of course, if you are watching on YouTube, we just hit 70,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for getting us to that mark. We are so excited, but we want to continue on well past that mark. We are aiming for 100,000 subscribers. If we can do it before the end of the year, that would be, just downright awesome. But that is the next number that we are aiming for. And if you subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/myradar, be sure to click on that notification bell as well. That way you always know whenever we drop a new video. Of course, whenever we go live, you'll be notified for something like this, as we have so much cool stuff dropping in the next couple of weeks and months, not only featuring the meteorological team, myself, Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson, and meteorologist Stephanie Lauber, but we've got so many more members of the team that you will be seeing across the YouTube channel and across the app in the coming months. We are so excited. Now, we are rolling on through what has been a historic, that is really the best way to describe the 2020 hurricane season and the year in and of itself. But the hurricane season has been historic, really the only year that compares. We don't have to go back all that far, relatively speaking, to compare it, and that is 2005. Of course, the record for the most named storms is from the year 2005, and it is 28 named storms. Well, we now have 27 named storms. That is what we are chasing. We are chasing history. Now, like I mentioned, if you are watching on YouTube, or if you are watching, of course, on Facebook or on Twitter as well, I should have mentioned, Damien, if you want to pull them up, there you go. Right on the bottom of the screen there are all of our social media handles. Get involved in the conversation. Ask us a question. We will be monitoring the chat as we go along live this morning, and we will be also joining you live throughout the day today. After this, I think you'll be seeing a midday kind of lunchtime live stream featuring the latest forecast information. Then you'll have another update from myself in the early afternoon, and then Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson will be here in the early afternoon and evening to take you home the rest of the way, right on through landfall of Zeta, because it's not a matter of if Zeta will make landfall, it is now a matter of when. And unfortunately, with the way that this season has been, Mother Nature is taking aim at the coastline of Louisiana yet again, the Gulf Coast of the United States, after many years of kind of dodging landfalling hurricanes, has just seen one after the next, and it has really been rather unfortunate, especially when you consider there really hasn't been much of a time to kind of take a deep breath, right? You'd think just one impact and then enough time to kind of recover, but unfortunately that's just not the way that nature and the way that the season has gone thus far. So let's take a look at some of the latest forecast information here. I also have the chat, I should mention, right up here next to me as well. So if anybody has a question for me at any point, be sure to ask your question, and I will be sure to answer them as the morning goes on. Again, I hope that you are all safe as we get started here on Wednesday morning. So far, things are looking pretty good across the chat. But Damien, let's just get started here. Before we get into the graphics that I have prepared, let's take a look at the MyRadar app. And I think that we are still connected. You should still have it up there here on the iPad. Perfect. And what I love about the MyRadar app, aside from the fact that, of course, we are employees of the company, but we just love the app being the fact that it's so customizable. There's so much that you can see, so much that you can do, and it really shines this time of year when we have so much going on in the world of weather, because it's not just Zeta here that we have sitting in the Gulf of Mexico. And I guess let's tap on Zeta here and we can get the current information from the National Hurricane Center. And it is very likely that we will see Zeta take a step up here to a Category 2 hurricane. It is picking up speed as it gets going early this morning, and that could impact as to when it will make landfall heading into the early afternoon. Currently a Category 1 hurricane with winds at 90 miles per hour. That pressure is dropping at 978 miles per hour, but look at the ground speed, 17 miles per hour. It is really hustling as it begins to turn and work its way toward the northeast. And the National Hurricane Center expecting Zeta to reach Category 2 intensity by 6 o'clock this evening as it sits just off the coastline of Louisiana, that being Port Sulphur and New Orleans. The city of New Orleans has seemingly been lucky almost all season long, kind of avoiding the impacts of Laura, Sally, Delta. Not so much with Zeta. Looks like Zeta is going to likely be making a pass right for the city of New Orleans. As to the intensity and of the intensity of the winds and the I guess I should say the scope of the winds, that remains to be seen. We will take a look at that forecast in just a moment, but you can see the cone from the National Hurricane Center. It really hasn't moved all that much. It has been centered right here over the southeastern corner of the state of Louisiana, going right over Port Sulphur, Lake Pontchartrain, New Orleans, pushing eastward toward Pearl River, I should say northeastward, and into Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So Mississippi, Alabama, and even a little bit of Georgia kind of right here in the crosshairs of Zeta. It will likely be considerably weaker at that point down near tropical storm intensity, but you can see all of this for yourself by going into the MyRadar app, going to the layers menu. It's the third from the right on the mobile devices. I'm on an iPad here, but it looks like the stack of cards there, right there on the bottom left. You just tap on the layers and then go to Hurricane Tracker, and then you just have to turn it on there. So much cool stuff that you can do in the Hurricane Tracker layer. One thing before we go, Damien, here, I want to zoom out a little bit here on the MyRadar app. We still have the radar layer turned on here, and once it starts to fill in the data across the southern United States, look at Oklahoma and Texas there. That is a winter storm developing here as a low pressure center works its way eastward across the southern United States. So some thunder snow here overnight and early this morning across northern Oklahoma City. How about that? You can turn on the lightning layer here too in the MyRadar app, where if we go into lightning here, it's just under the high def radar there right at the top. You have two options. You can turn flashes on, or you can turn flashes off. You can show the markers so you can see lightning indicators there, or you can turn those flashes on, or you can turn both of them on. Again, super duper customizable. That's what we really pride ourselves on with the MyRadar app. So let's turn one of the premium features on. This is the per station radar, and what this enables us to do is select National Weather Service radar sites. And unfortunately, the Lake Charles radar, if we try to tap on it here, well, it's not going to work. That was Hurricane Laura that took out that radar site. Isn't that interesting? If we tap on Houston, we're really not going to get a great picture there, so we've got to go back here to the city of New Orleans. And this is going to give us the radar scans from the National Weather Service office there in the city of New Orleans. And you can see that it's just getting the outer bands there of Zeta. Still not really seeing the bulk of it just yet, although we are seeing some stronger thunderstorms work their way inland right there near Dauphin Island, up near Mobile, Alabama, and pushing northward into the eastern the border there of Mississippi. And Damien, before we get into the weather graphics, if you want to get the live cameras prepared, I mean, it is the morning, so we might as well take a look at what it looks like outside, right? But again, that's the MyRadar app. There's so much cool stuff that you can do in the app. Let me pop it back over to the high def radar there. And as it loads, Damien, let's jump on over to the weather stem camera there. This one comes to us from Escambia High School in Florida. It's Escambia County, I believe it is there, Damien, right on the western panhandle of the Sunshine State of Florida. But not a lot of sunshine this morning, courtesy of our partners at WeatherStem. Just a thick layer of low-hanging clouds there over the western panhandle of the state of Florida. Not so pretty, and no one in the stands early this morning. Let's jump on over to Louisiana. How about this one from Alex Box Stadium there in the foreground? That's where the LSU Tigers play their baseball. And of course, we become partners over the summer with two great live streaming partners in Surfline and in WeatherStem, and we just haven't had a lot to show you in terms of variety because Mother Nature has just kind of honed in on the Gulf Coast and on the state of Louisiana. And here's what we got to show you early this morning near Baton Rouge from Alex Box Stadium. So not exactly dealing with any kind of intense winds all just yet, as Zeta still sits off the coastline, but it is only going to get a little more active as the morning goes on. Let's take a look at Pensacola, Florida now, this time courtesy of our partners at Surfline. Not exactly looking like a great morning to get surfing early on. You can see just one person there looking out toward the water. Some very rough surf early on today, and we will talk here coming up here shortly about the storm surge forecast. Maybe not necessarily for Pensacola, but for the American or for the U.S. Gulf Coast there right along the southern U.S. So enough chit-chat, Damien. Let's jump right on into the weather graphics that I have prepared. And again, I've got the chat here right up next to me, so let me know where you are watching from this morning. We've got Stephanie watching in Milton, Florida. Stephanie, I hope that you are doing well this morning. And again, be sure, of course, that you are subscribed to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MyRadar. Be sure to click on that subscribe button and do not forget to turn on those notifications. So let's take a look here at the tropical infrared imagery of Zeta. We still have the real bulk of it sitting over the Gulf of Mexico. You can see kind of on the northwestern edge of the storm, kind of looking from the top down there is where kind of the most thunderstorm activity is. So kind of tilted just a little bit there. Zeta, and again, picking up the speed, moving north at 17 miles per hour. It wasn't too long ago that we saw Delta kind of sitting in and around a similar area in the Gulf Coast, moving at around 13, 14 miles per hour. A lot bigger of a storm, but nonetheless, you really see the difference, of course, in speed, and Delta making landfall a lot later into the evening. Zeta likely to be a little earlier than what was initially anticipated from the National Hurricane Center, who have just totally nailed the forecast paths, the cone and the track for almost all of the storms here in the second half of the season here moving forward. So bravo to the men and women doing a great job there in Miami. Looking at the tropical tracker over the next couple of days, even if you don't necessarily live along the Gulf Coast of the U.S., if you live in Alabama, Mississippi, even in Georgia, eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, even the Delmarva Peninsula, folks, we're talking southern New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, possibly even the Massachusetts, Connecticut area there, could be dealing with some rainfall moving into the latter half of the work week and into the final weekend of the month. Isn't that crazy? Halloween is this weekend. This year is flying by. I mean, we've got the presidential election coming up, and then we wrap up 2020. Isn't that insane? Moving into 2021, this year is flying by, and I'm sure a lot of folks that live here in the color-coded map that you are seeing here in front of you are just ready for 2020 to be over for many, many reasons. A hurricane warning in effect for the eastern coastline of Louisiana, also in effect for the southern coastline of Mississippi, a small portion of the Alabama coastline there under a hurricane warning, but mostly under a tropical storm warning. That is the purple color that does extend into the panhandle of Florida. Pensacola is included in that warning. You see the yellow all the way on the western edge of the map. That is Morgan City, a location that has seen a lot of red, that being the hurricane warning, but now just under a tropical storm watch as Zeta is expected to kind of hook to the east. Now, if we look at the inundation here from Zeta moving rather quickly here, so that does mean that as it pushes inland, it is likely to kind of hang on to its hurricane strength winds. Remember, it is expected to potentially intensify up to a Category 2 hurricane, and then weakening, of course, as it works its way over land. there is the possibility there for it to hang on to the Category 1 strength winds a little longer than anticipated, and that could really push the water inland. That includes the spots here that you're seeing in the orange color, that being above 6 feet of water. Triumph, Grand Isle, south of Houma there, and of course Morgan City, a spot that has just been inundated one after the next storm, kind of catching a bit of a break during this event. But New Orleans, upwards of a good 3 feet or so of storm surge. That is something to keep an eye out for. And even for the folks that live in Mobile and even in Biloxi, Mississippi, the potential for some local spots to see upwards of near 6, 7, maybe even 8 feet of storm surge. Got to take it super, super careful this particular instance, just based on how quickly this storm is moving. So again, a good 4 to 8 foot of storm surge potential inundation along the coastline there, and it kind of lines up right along with where we are seeing the hurricane watches and warnings here as we get going early this morning. And in terms of this, the peak, that being kind of the highest amount of storm surge that you are likely to see, it stretches almost all the way from Yankeetown on the western coastline of the state of Florida. We're talking north of Tampa, all the way to New Iberia in Louisiana. So a huge amount of real estate covered by this storm. And this isn't going to give us, an exact measurement, considering that, the coastline isn't a straight line here, but we're talking 500 to near 600 miles plus of coastline from the state of Florida all the way through Alabama, Mississippi, and into Louisiana as well. Now, we've shown you this graphic many, many times, the water vapor, when you really want to take a look at kind of an X-ray vision as to what is going on within it, within the satellite imagery, I should say. Let me grab my line tool here so I can draw it. Of course, there is Zeta. And if somebody can tell me in the chat, kind of a bit of a trivia question for you. Of course, we are working our way through the Greek alphabet. We already worked our way through the list of names for 2020. But just out of curiosity, what is the next name on the list? So once we work our way through Zeta, what is the next name on the list? If we were to have another name storm, can you tell me? Let me know in the chat, and I will go back to see whether or not your answers are correct. So let's jump back to the graphics here. And again, you can see that we have Zeta spinning counterclockwise as a hurricane is low pressure. We've got some drier air coming in from this low pressure spinning over the panhandle of Texas. And that is, whoops, over here clicking around like a fool on my computer program. But this is the storm that's responsible for the snow across northern Texas and into Oklahoma. But this orange kind of beige slot here, that is the drier air, and that could work to entrain some of that drier air into the northern chunk of this storm. But with as quick as Zeta is moving, there may not be enough time for that drier air to really have too much of an impact. More so the shearing kind of happening right here along the northern edge of the storm. That looks more likely to occur here over the next couple of hours. But nonetheless, let me grab my tool here to zoom this out. Can you see that drier air kind of just over the Eastern Caribbean there? That is a subtropical ridge of high pressure. So unlike over here, over Texas, this is a trough. That's low pressure. This is a ridge, the opposite, where the winds rotate clockwise. So just kind of looking at a bit of the steering currents going on. We've got a trough to the west and a big old subtropical ridge to the east. And that is kind of what is directing Zeta kind of right up and into that area of the Gulf Coast, which has just been unlucky, so to speak, for these past couple of weeks. We've got Bert chiming in with a guess there. Epsilon. Bert, that is incorrect as to what the next name on the list would be. We've got Brent watching in Clinton, Iowa. What's up, Brent? Or Brent, I should say. Jim in Mobile. What's going on, Jim? We're talking about Mobile this morning. Looks like it could be pretty wet for you folks there, with the potential for some localized storm surge, especially if you live along the coastline. Might be a little late for you to make your preparations now, but hopefully you have heeded local and regional emergency management officials here in the closing hours of Zeta's arrival. Now, here's a look at the European model forecast, expecting Zeta to work its way toward the coastline between 6 and 8 o'clock this evening. There is the potential here over the next couple of hours for the models to kind of catch up a little bit, as Zeta has, as I've mentioned at the beginning of the live stream here, seemingly started to kind of kick things up a little bit from first gear to second gear, so on and so forth. So there is the possibility for an earlier than anticipated landfall, but as to where it's going, you can see the cone there, that blue, those two blue lines there and the black line there kind of demarcating the center line, showing us that the city of New Orleans and even Biloxi, Mississippi, going to be really, really close to a likely kind of pass from Zeta as it works its way inland and making landfall along the Louisiana coastline later this evening. By Thursday afternoon, picking up a considerable amount of real estate, working its way all the way and into North Carolina by Thursday afternoon, close to near 2 o'clock there, and by the weekend, kind of exiting near the Delmarva Peninsula. I mentioned how far inland this hurricane force wind would go, and this is a really neat graphic to show you that. I wanted to show you into the afternoon here. Look at Wednesday, that being today, around 3:30 this afternoon. That red dot there, that would be Category 1 strength winds, and just to the outside of it, the orange color there, that's high-end tropical storm force winds. And notice, as we see Zeta, oops, I hit the space bar there a little earlier, as we get to 6:30 this evening, that's a landfall, right? This particular model picking it up right over top of the city of New Orleans. And again, that is just short of dinner time tonight, right there over New Orleans, Louisiana. Bear with me one second here. I just tapped something over here on my app. Okay. All right, so let's jump back here to the graphics. And again, look at this. All the way into Thursday morning, still just a small area there working its way through spots of Mississippi and into Alabama, dealing with tropical storm force winds. So this is kind of unlike the other events that we've seen kind of toward the back end of the season, as the wind field, I should say, has kind of really diminished as these storms have moved a lot slower than Zeta. Zeta moving faster, likely to bring those stronger winds inland, whereas the other storms moving slower, rain has been more of the threat. So just a little different. Zeta is kind of throwing us a bit of a curveball compared to what we've seen lately. And really, again, look at how long those strong winds, those are, up near 57 mile per hour winds. And if you see that orange dot, that's even up near Atlanta, Georgia, and tracking along the western mountain range there of North Carolina and into Virginia. That is high-end tropical storm force winds up near 73 miles per hour. Just a dot there, but passing right on through the city of Birmingham, Alabama, and through Atlanta, Georgia, at least right through the mountains of Blue Ridge, Georgia there. Big shout out to Mark Taylor. Interesting stuff. Again, Zeta, just based on how fast it is moving, it's just not going to have a lot of time here over these next couple hours to kind of slow down. It is on a collision course for the Gulf Coast of the United States. Rain, not as much of a threat from Zeta compared to the previous storms that we had dealt with in this same area of the U.S., that being Sally, Laura. Still looking at a decent amount of rain, though, up near 3 to 5 inches of rain, even upwards of near 7 inches of rain. For folks that live in and around the Biloxi, Mississippi area, that's going to be pretty close to landfall there through most of today. But this is the next 2 to 3 days, or rather, I misspoke there, the next 3 days. Bear in mind, we still have that storm coming in from Texas and Oklahoma that's bringing the snow right now with it as well. I'm going to jump over to the chat here, Damien, because I think that I see a correct answer for the trivia question that I asked. And my trivia question was, what is the next name on the list if we are to see another named storm? Because, of course, we've worked our way through already the set-aside names for the 2020 season. So what is the next name on the list? And Bert McDowell, or Bert, I should say, you are correct. It is Ada. Ada is the next name on the list. And in fact, I've got the next couple names here. In fact, we go Eta, Theta, it's just more Greek names, Eta, Theta, Iota, Kappa, Lambda, Mu. So I will tell you that I don't care one more iota about this season. Gosh, what a season it has been. What a year it has been, right? I think I don't speak for only myself when I say that I am ready for 2021. Let's just go right on into that year. Let's take one last look at the chat here, Damien. And again, big shout out to all of you watching at home. I hope you are doing well this morning. Big shout out to Damien behind the scenes. And big shout out to everyone on the MyRadar team, Matt and Damien behind the scenes, Fernan, of course, Leslie and Stephanie rocking the house on the meteorology team. And of course, big shout out to all of our hardworking developers. That is one thing that I feel like I don't mention enough. If you are watching in our live streams, if you subscribe to us on social media, please just shoot a thank you to our developer, even our customer support and customer service and customer support teams, our developing team, software development team, I should say. Shoot them some thanks. Those men and women work really, really hard to make sure the MyRadar app works flawlessly on a daily basis. So big shout out to our developers. Let's take a look here at the chat. Let's see what else we got here. We've got Tiffany saying, gonna bring your plants in. Probably a pretty good idea, especially if they are kind of young plants. Of course, we're getting into we're in the fall. So we're getting ready to the point where most stuff, depending on where you live, isn't going to really survive as temperatures drop. But if you do live in the cone and you are dealing with some strong winds, there is the possibility you could be looking at some of those kind of weaker, more kind of top, closer to the topsoil trees, plants becoming a bit weakened thanks to the winds and because of the rain from Zeta here. We've got Ozala. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Ozala, living in Tiger, Georgia. And then we've got Brian here. All right. So I hope that you are all doing well. Let me jump on over one last place to check, Damien, for some stuff from the chat. Unless you're seeing something, Damien, you can chime in. Let me know in my ears here if I'm missing something here. We've got Diamond Head, Mississippi. Good morning to you, John. John is saying it's pronounced Biloxi. Now, Damien, you're from Mississippi. Is it Biloxi or Biloxi? You got to let me know. Okay, so Damien said that I'm not speaking with enough Southern slang, with enough of that, with the twang, I should say, right, Damien, the Southern twang? So it's Biloxi, if I want to sound like I am a local, right? Okay, you guys can't hear Damien. Damien's in my ear. Damien said that he's from Mississippi. So big shout out to all the folks there. I actually did some meteorological training through Mississippi State. So go Dogs. Anyway, Damien, I think that is probably enough time here. Once we start talking about Mississippi State, we're probably in a good place to wrap things up. But we will be back. We are not saying goodbye. It is just see you later, because we will be back in a couple of hours to bring you the latest with all things tropical, or with all things Hurricane Zeta, I should say. A Category 1 hurricane. It will be a Category 2, or at least the National Hurricane Center is expecting to become one here in the next couple of hours, just in time for landfall. Likely to be a little earlier than anticipated, as Zeta is really picking up some steam here, kind of Fast and the Furious style, up near 17 miles per hour, a lot faster than how we've seen things move lately here through the second half of hurricane season. So just some final housekeeping notes before we say goodbye. If you are not already, be sure to follow us across all of our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube as well. You can see them right there at the bottom of your screen. Be sure, of course, to download the MyRadar app across all of the mobile platforms. We are available across iOS, Android, Windows. We are everywhere. And of course, again, be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be sure to turn on those notifications. That way you always know whenever we are live. Damien, I think that is about it. I don't think I have anything else to mention. We will be back in a couple of hours for the latest with all things Hurricane Zeta. Until then, stay safe and stay dry. I have been meteorologist Mike Linden. We'll catch you in the next one.